joining us today. I'm Laurie Hood, CMO at Mobilewalla, and I want to welcome you to our panel discussion, Innovative Data Science, Today, Tomorrow, and What the Future Holds. Mobilewalla provides data and technology solutions to support the fight to be the sponsor of Data Invaders Conference, and I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel. Before we jump in, I make it clear the panelist commentary today not reflect the views or opinions of organizations. And with that, let's introduce the panelists who are joining us today. I've got Apurvaa Subramaniam, who's a data scientist at Instacart, and manager of marketing analytics at.
Laurie, can I just step in there? Could I ask you to refresh your screen to SD, please? Your broadband seems to be struggling. Ladies, my apologies. Let me just see if we can get Laurie back on screen. While we're doing that, ladies, I think it'd be a good time now to introduce yourself to the audience.
Apurvaa, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Apurvaa. I currently work as a senior data scientist at Instacart. And for those of you who don't know, Instacart is a grocery platform company. So you can go online on Instacart and order groceries from your favorite retailers. And we also provide retailer enablement services to help retailers power all their grocery transactions. So I can tell you a little bit about my background and how I got here. So I grew up in India and then went to Singapore for undergrad, where I studied computer engineering. After that, I worked in an investment bank, Goldman Sachs, for about 3 years as a software engineer. And there, my team I was on the investment research team, where we were basically building an analytics platform for investment research analysts to make data-driven decisions and to help in their modeling, etc. And that's when I realized that I was actually more interested in statistics and the actual modeling itself. My role there at that time was more on the infrastructure side, so building data pipelines, making sure the data was in the right form, etc. So around that time, I also happened to read this article in Harvard Business Review, which called data science the sexiest job of the 21st century. So that was intriguing to me as well. And then I decided to apply for master's programs in the US. And came to the US to study master's at Northwestern University. So my master's, which was called Master's in Analytics, was basically mostly statistics and some data visualization, big data courses, etc. So after the master's program, I got a job at Amazon in a data science role, and so moved to Seattle. I was at Amazon for about 4 years and worked on 3 different teams during that time. So I worked on a product team, a strategy team, as well as a supply chain team. And it was really interesting to see the applications of data science in all of these different areas of the business. But after 4 years at Amazon, I wanted to try working at a smaller company. And that's when I came to Instacart. And on Instacart right now, I've been at Instacart for about a year, and I'm on the advertising team here.
Well, fantastic. And again, I apologize for whatever's going on at my end. And thank you, Apurvaa. And Vani, why don't we go to you and tell us a little bit about your background and being a data scientist at Twitter.
Thank you so much. Morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. My name is Vani Petkar. I am a senior manager of marketing analytics at Twitter. I'll tell a little bit about my journey and how I got into the data science field. My role has always been in the marketing domain, applying analytics for marketing. I worked across healthcare and tech industries over the last 15 years. And what has changed really is just a data source. But the core of what I do remains the same, which is empowering marketing teams and leaders with data-driven insights so that they can do, so that they can excel in the marketing programs they put for the companies. So at Twitter, what that really translates into is any sort of, in marketing insights to help with upfront marketing strategy, all the way till, marketing attribution and impact measurement. The only thing that has changed over the years is the data source and the volume of data I work with, but the core of what I do has always remained the same. Similar to Apurvaa, over the last few years, I saw data science more like as an paradigm, right? Like it's the next phase of marketing analytics. So I did also do the same grad program that she went to. I did not know that, Apurvaa, but I was also in the Northwestern program a few years ago, completed during the pandemic. I'm so thankful that's done. It's working full time and taking on a grad school is its own challenge, but it's a fantastic program. And the reason I did that is just to kind of equip myself with some of the data science skills to and apply it within my domain.
Awesome. Thank you. And I see, Aishwarya, that you have been able to join us. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit about your background and your journey to your role as a data scientist at Google.
Yeah, sure. So I don't think not a lot of people know this, but I got inspired to get into the data science role somewhere from my mom. So she has been a data analyst and like a research analyst back in her days. And I don't know if you know of the tool IBM's SPSS. That is something that she has been using since before like I was born. So it's just, very nostalgic when I joined IBM. And, I was just like talking to it about this to my mom, and she's like, hey, remember back those days I was using SPSS. So it was just like a nice thing to like remember. So my journey started because when I was a kid, I used to spend a lot of my time with my mom, going to her office and, just being besides her while she was working. And during that time, I used to see her doing a lot of statistical analysis, using like pen and paper and like, sitting down with the scientific calculator and things like that. So that sort of like triggered my interest in what she was doing. And as a kid, I was very interested in mathematics. As in when I saw her using these tools and like she was using multi-layer perceptron at some point. Now it's like, fancily known as machine learning or like deep learning. So that sort of like inspired me to get into the field. And since I was in my undergrad, I pivoted towards like majoring in machine learning. And that sort of like gave me a head start in the research that I was doing back then. And at that point, for some reason, I wanted to pursue my PhD. I wanted to get into the academia side of things. And eventually I realized that it was probably not the strong suit for me, or was not the best direction for me. And hence I decided to like do my master's in data science at Columbia. That's when I came to the US. And after graduating, I joined IBM's data science elite team, which was more of a startup within IBM. It was a very accelerated, fast-paced team, and I got to learn a lot of things staying there. It was more of a full-stack data science role, so it was really, really interesting to me. And at some point, I wanted to shift my focus towards just the modeling side of things. And that's when I decided to take the switch and move to Google in my new role.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you, all three of you, for sharing the backstory. And what we were thinking with this is then to move into, let's talk a little bit about kind of current role, things that you're doing that you think are especially cool and innovative, areas where you're seeing challenges, and then we'll kind of close out with sort of your vision for, what does the future hold? So with that, Vani, I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about, just give us an example of like a specific application of data science. And I know you're coming at it from the marketing side, which is very close to my heart as a marketer. But if you could tell us about a specific application, either current role or previous role, that you feel has been particularly innovative or has really produced a successful outcome, that would be great.
I love the question. Thank you. And again, so most of what I will speak to, it will be on the application of data science within the marketing field, right? Within the marketing analytics. So a lot of work that I'm doing right now at Twitter for the marketing organization is all in this realm of marketing attribution, which really means understanding how various interactions that our consumers or customers go through with the various touch points of our marketing programs, understanding how that has influenced business outcomes such as maybe revenue or it's driving user growth for a platform. Now, marketing attribution has been in industry for very long, right? So there are some very established techniques that we use around marketing mix modeling. But what has changed more recently is application of some of the newer data sources. So these new data streams around media consumption, for example, for our company, we're trying to, like Twitter is so ubiquitous and well known. We get a lot of what we call earned media. So, we are just mentioned everywhere. So what does something like an earned media do for our marketing and what does it do for our outcomes? So kind of tackling some of the newer data that we have available within this established kind of platform, but leveraging some of the newer machine learning techniques. So I think that's been really helpful for us because it's looking at the same problem, looking at using an older technique, but bringing in some new data sources and establishing some layering, some more new techniques to build, improve the prediction of our models. So that's one area. I think another area that I can just quickly touch base on another piece, which is about a big piece for us is about identifying and predicting trends in our platform. I'll pause there because I think I can come back and pick up the thread on this.
Sure, that was great, and so key takeaway for our audience: incorporating new and different data streams, even with some of your current techniques. So, Apurvaa, why don't you share your thoughts on some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah, sure. So I can give an example from my previous role at Amazon. So this was when I was in the supply chain organization. So the supply chain organization is the backbone of Amazon because that's where all the inventory decisions, such as how many products to buy, when to buy, how to place them, and finally how they get delivered to the end customer within 2 days, are all made by that organization. And actually, a large part of that is now fully automated. So it's this giant machine learning algorithm which is making a lot of these decisions without even involving humans. But one of the projects which I found really interesting there was something where we used a technique called double machine learning. Traditional machine learning models are very good for prediction. So for example, random forests, XGBoost, neural networks, etc. But what they're not so good at is causal inference, which is understanding why something is being predicted or like why something's changing. So I'll give you an example. So for example, if you want to know how changing the price of an item affects its demand, you could use a machine learning model to predict demand given price. However, that is likely to have a lot of bias. On the other hand, you have econometrics models, such as various regression models, etc., which are very good at causal inference. But their drawback is they often require more rigid assumptions, and they're also a little bit more difficult and they're not as good at predictions. So basically, this double machine learning technique combines these and brings together the best of these two worlds. And so then you're able to do a lot more things much more easily. So for the example I gave you, where you could, using double machine learning, it becomes much easier to, for example, look at things like price elasticity, etc. So I think this technique can be used in a variety of applications. So it was something which is pretty cutting edge and super interesting.
Cool. I'm seeing a breakout session at the next Data Science Connect conference on double machine learning with you leading it, Apurvaa. So that's great. And Aishwarya, let's jump in and share your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I can share based on my role is that there's a lot of focus on machine learning CI/CD of things. So a lot around like machine learning operations. How do you in a scalable way have a continuous integration, continuous deployment where you are able to monitor the drift of the models, where you're able to automatically retrain, set up pipelines to retrain the model at frequent intervals based on how the model performance is changing with respect to time. So that is one of the things which has been a major advancements and in the way that we have implemented machine learning, going from experimentations, going from research and development into something which is now integrated into applications for everyday use. So that's one of the things that we have been working on recently. And of course, the other thing that I've been working on a framework with my team, which is called a data quality assessment framework. And that sort of puts into place data-centric AI view of things. So we have been able to figure out ways and metrics which is helping us assess data quality and data availability, data sufficiency for any kind of use case building that we're looking at. And there has been a lot of push towards implementing that in day-to-day workflow for data scientists.
No, that's fantastic. We've looked into, I am not a data scientist. We have a bunch of them at Mobilewalla, and data-centric AI is one of the things that we've focused on, and quality of that data. I mean, that we could probably do a whole session on that. So just went through a bunch of really cool ideas, innovations, things that our audience should consider. Let's sort of switch to the flip side and talk a little bit about what do you see are some of the barriers to innovation or barriers to success? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing that are impacting your ability to maybe drive more innovation or drive better performing models? And we'll go the other way around. So Aishwarya, if you wouldn't mind taking a start at this, that'd be great.
So yeah, this might not be a universal truth. It might not be applying to each and every case, but one of the kind of challenges that I have seen is the availability of the data, or availability of the data in the right kind of format that's needed for modeling. So we have seen that a lot of times what happens is that the data is not stored or not available in the same timeline that we would need across multiple tables or multiple features that is required for that particular use case. So that is one of the challenges that I have come across in the recent use cases that I've worked on. So availability and sufficiency for the data for the modeling purposes has been a challenge. This can also be looked at from a computer vision perspective, right? Where you don't have enough labeled information when you want to train the models. So that is one side of the challenges that I've seen. And the other side of the challenges that I've seen is around explainability, because when it comes to model implementation, which is more tech focused or which is more focused on non-risky perspectives, it is still easier for those models to be put in production versus industries like finance or healthcare, where there is a lot of PII, PHI. It's difficult for data scientists to predict decisions and instantly be used without having the explainability part in the picture. So these are the two broad challenges that I have encountered in the recent times.
Awesome. Vani, I'm going to toss it over to you, especially because Aishwarya started on kind of the data side and you had mentioned that, but would love to kind of get your thoughts on what are some of the barriers to success.
Yeah, I think everything that Aishwarya talked about, like data availability, that applies in the marketing domain. Clean data, those all hold true. And there's also things around just privacy to ethics in AI, right? So I think these are like really top of mind. But what I want to focus on, again, particularly from the marketing domain that I see as a challenge or a barrier, is it's nothing to do with data or even data science applications, but it's around organizational alignment. It really data science can be within marketing, can be siloed in organizations because we sit within the marketing function, and marketing and sales functions are often can be seen as support functions within a product org. So I think it takes and we all know what it takes to build and establish a data science function. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of building the roadmap before it can actually start getting models into production and having a continuous pipeline of activity. So I think it's really where I see is that organizational alignment with the marketing leaders and other tech leaders within the company, and having that breaking the barrier of the perception that the data science within marketing cannot deliver fast enough, right? So I think this is changing, but the adoption is probably not the same as in other areas. And I think this is something that industry practitioners as well as like partners in this ecosystem that we can help to work to adopt data science much faster. Laurie, I'm curious to hear your perspective as well within the marketing C-suite, like how do you see this work from your perspective? But like as a practitioner, I can kind of see that as one of the barrier in some of the organizations.
I would agree. In my company, I mean, we're a data science company, so little less of a challenge. But when I talk to our customers and folks on the marketing side or the line of business side, there's definitely alignment challenges. And as you said, some of it depends on how the organization is structured. But a lot of it is just everybody's got to come together on what really that business problem is and an understanding of that challenge that they're trying to address, regardless of which side you're on. And that's sometimes where I see marketers struggle as well. You're seeing marketers being much more technical these days because it's become a data game, a numbers game, an analysis game. But some also struggle to kind of get in the mind of how data scientists work. And that can be really intimidating as a marketer. I think there's a lot of education needed to help people understand what's really the power of data science. It's not magic, but how can it really help propel the business goals forward? So it's interesting. There's so much opportunity and so much great stuff going on. Apurva, we'll toss this one over to you and sort of your thoughts on some of the barriers that you're seeing.
Yeah, I think similar to what Vani said, I think people and organizational structure as well as leadership, I would say, are the biggest barriers I've seen. So I've seen examples where a team might claim to be data-driven, but in reality, all they're looking for is data to already validate what they were already thinking. So when you present data that is against their beliefs, it suddenly becomes a much more uphill task to try and convince them. And I think a few other examples are, so usually there's a team of data scientists and then there's domain experts who have domain knowledge, but sometimes these two teams don't really talk. So what I've seen happening is the data scientists will go off and build a model, but maybe they haven't taken into account certain assumptions. And so at the end of it, they realize that it wasn't the right model, or it wasn't even the right problem that they were trying to solve. So I think similar to what you said earlier, Laurie, I think coming up with the exact problem statement is actually, I would say, the most difficult part of data science. And I've been in situations where we had to go back to the drawing board and revise the problem statement multiple times, because once we actually started working on the problem, we realized that it wasn't the right problem that we were trying to solve.
I want to go back to one of your earlier points. My favorite thing in organizations is when people say, we want to bring in change agents and we want to challenge the status quo. But what they secretly mean is, we want you to tell us what we want to do is right. So I think that can put teams in a very difficult position. So I want to make sure we've got some time for questions. So let's close out with kind of, in looking to the future, what are some of the things that you see coming, or some areas that you think people should be paying more attention to today as they move their organizational strategies forward? And so, Apurvaa, we'll let you go first on this one.
Okay, yeah. I personally am very interested and excited about quantum computing and how that's going to change the whole data science and machine learning fields. Because right now, so some of you might have heard of AlphaGo, which was Google's, or DeepMind, which was acquired by Google. But basically, it was an algorithm that was able to play the game Go, which is considered a very difficult game because it requires a lot of simulations. And it was actually able to beat several top human players. But to train that algorithm, I think they use something like over 2,000 CPUs and over 100 GPUs, which is a lot of computing power. And I feel like that kind of restricts this field to certain large tech companies which have that kind of computing power. But I think with quantum computing, there is an opportunity to democratize data science more, because quantum computing, or at least that's what quantum computing claims to be, is that a lot of these compute-intensive calculations and simulations should be able to be done much faster. And also, I'm particularly interested about its applications in biosciences and biostatistics and the health field in general, because a lot of genetics, for example, is running through millions of combinations of genes and trying to find potential cures, for example.
Yep. Very cool. Thank you. And Vani, some thoughts from you for the future?
I'll pick up on one thread that Apurvaa touched upon, which is like data democratization, right? We've heard this term a lot, and I truly believe that different industries are in a different place in that paradigm. So I'll again take the tech industry, like our platform, for example, Twitter. It's all about data, and I'll give what I see as the future for a marketing org, right? It's something that you said as well, Laurie. Is everyone kind of has to become a part analyst, a part data scientist, a little bit, right? To kind of start using data much more quickly to empower quicker decisions that they do, right? Be it sales org, be it within the marketing, different levels. So I think some sort of data literacy training is imperative for organizations, and tooling, right? Like easy tooling to kind of help enable some of this quick processing, and without take away the fear of, how do we use this data, or how do we even interpret this? So that's one piece. I think I see our company, we're already there, like, powering sales orgs or powering the entire marketing org with like the data that they need right away. The other part I also see is around auto ML. So as data becomes more, like as more and more data efficiency permeates through an organization, can data scientists start leveraging, or even like an analyst start using auto ML to do some quicker work, right? And I feel like we are just at the tip of it. Some of the other functions or orgs are already like way advanced in that adoption. So I think the use cases for marketing specifically today, the vendors don't build solutions around that, but I think we'll see more solutions coming, and we'll hope to see more wider adoption within marketing orgs as well.
Awesome. Very cool. No, great points. And Aishwarya, welcome back. And if you want to just share some of your thoughts on kind of what you see for the future and things we should be considering today.
So, yeah, my internet has been a little flaky. So one year, are we responsible AI from a policy and governance perspective versus it's very different when you're trying to put that into a lot of the data components, right? The data that we can come out ideally. It's policy. There's a and
Aishwarya, we're losing you some. So what I'm going to do, we've got a little bit of time left, and we do have a question. Biggest issue is the lack of quality data. What can we do to improve on this? And I'll just toss that out to either one of you. Any thoughts, Bonnie or Apurvaa? Sure.
I can start. Data quality. I think it'll never go away. I think this challenge will continue to be there throughout. It'll just, the manifestation of it will differ, right, as we get new data sources. So I think, so with that perspective, it's really about what can we continuously do to kind of improve our internal data sets, right? So I think there's got to be due diligence or even teams that are looking into, data quality and flagging. Again, it cannot be just one team. It has to be like a community of data scientists within the company, right? Like constantly being able to communicate on where data issues are and how, and then obviously someone to kind of help fix it. So I think it's a continuous monitoring process. I don't know if that it's common sense. It kind of seems like to me, but that's how I see it.
But I think it's easier said than done, which is why it just continues to be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would add to that and say, so a lot of data, especially in tech companies, is actually created by the engineering team. So I think educating the engineering team on how important that data is and how it helps the business make decisions, etc., is very important. So at Amazon, for example, they actually had a machine learning university, which was meant to educate engineers about the importance of machine learning and how data is used in models, etc. Because as everybody knows, you can have the best model, but if your data is garbage, the output will be garbage. And I think once everyone realizes that, then everyone sort of becomes a steward for ensuring data quality.
And Aishwarya earlier had mentioned data-centric AI, and a lot of that premise is everybody's like super focused on the model and the algorithm and the technique, and really, if it's garbage in, garbage out, you're still going to be in trouble. And maybe we should shift some of our focus to looking at that data and how can we maximize from that side. We have a little bit of time left, and there was a question, and would love to get your thoughts, because I think, Bonnie, you touched on it a little bit on policy and governance. So how are your organizations, ethical AI came up, use of data. How are organizations thinking about this as we move forward and using AI and ML become much more ingrained in our business processes? I'll let either one of y'all jump on in.
I'll give a very quick overview. It's a huge portion of at Twitter, right? Because obviously we are dealing with users' data, so there's a lot of focus around a lot of focus and training internally for anyone who uses any data sets, who touches any data set around, what should we be accessing around data retention policies? How long are we able to keep our tables? How are we annotating our data? Like, is there consistency across orgs? So there's a huge team within Twitter who does that. It's not our team. We are just the recipients, and I'm glad that they are there, that they can train us and teach us how we can keep up on top of this. But it's again a muscle that entire org, anyone who touches data needs to kind of develop and work on. But there's a central team that's constantly looking ahead and thinking about all the things that that could potentially impact data and how we use it. So I think it's a very big piece of what our organization does.
Yep. Apurvaa?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Vani says. So we have multiple trainings, data-related trainings as well. And I think there's also a lot of new work being done around ensuring data privacy, for example. So I can give an example from Amazon. So all the data that's collected from like Alexa devices, for example, all of it's completely anonymized, and basically like no person can actually like has access to any single person's data, so nothing's identifiable basically. And now I think recently I have heard that there are more data related regulations that are also coming through. So Europe, for example, has much more strict laws related to privacy, but I think the US is also starting to get more of that. So I think it has to be a combination of both governance from the government as well as corporations themselves.
Yeah, no, that totally agree. I want to thank you, ladies. This has been fantastic. Comments in the chat have been really positive. I mean, thank you so much, A, for your time, and B, for your really thoughtful insights and responses to the questions. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And I will close with a comment. I think it's the quote of the session that Apurvaa made at the beginning, which is the sexiest job of the 21st century. So it's you guys have made just, again, brought tremendous thoughtful commentary. It's been a privilege to moderate the panel, and I want to thank y'all. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.